What's up, guys? I'm back with your favorite part of the week, the full card predictions for the upcoming UFC event. This card will be breaking down the riveting UFC fight night, Lemos versus Jandiroba. If you notice the bags, under my eyes, it's because I've been losing sleep over trying to figure out, who's going to win this one. And just the utter significance of it. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. Look, I don't like just being, I think that some of these guys who have these UFC, have these like picks channels, they dog on these cards too hard when some of them have like some low-key bangers on them. Was Namajunas versus Cortez for a, live arena fight night the most stacked ever? No, but there were some cool fights on it, and I just think some of these guys love the opportunity, especially with a WMMA main event, to just shit all over it. But when something deserves to get shit all over, I will speak up on it, because this is a tough one, man. I would give this card an F. That's not being harsh. There's just too many fights on this card. The co-main event is Brad Tavares versus Jeong Park. So that's all I have to say. There are a couple of fights and it's not even fights I'm excited for. It's more so just one of the fighters that's participating, which is another reason why this is, a little bit of a weak sauce card. But I know that I sound quite spoiled right now, right? We've got a banger UFC 304 coming up. We do have some really big fights that are going to be taking place by the end of the year. It's just sometimes, especially after International Fight Week, I feel like they're just going to be pumping out, some tough cards to sit through, because there's nobody on there that, are some of these high-level fights? Yes. But what captivates us as an audience is the emotional interest, and the stakes, and the thrill, and the agony, and all this. And it's there's none of this here. Jandiroba has negative aura. Lemos kind of has aura, but it's just we've already seen her get destroyed by the champ. So anyway, without further ado, I will get into it, but I did just want to do a quick recap of last week's event. Going, 7-4 when you have some crazy shit happening. Crazy shit. You have Julian Erosa submitting Christian Rodriguez, who apparently, when faced with altitude, becomes a very low-level grappler. And then Charles Johnson, the prospect killer. There were a few curveballs, but to go 7-4, considering the curveballs, I'll take it. I'm 34-23 on the year. That's not great, but there have been some very tricky ones. I think that there's a lot of fights that'll be coming up, like the UFC London card, where I think that it will be a lot easier to hit at the desired clip. Being 60% is less than ideal, but hey, at least we're picking more wins than losses, and have been trudging through these sort of weird cards and strange matchups. But anyway, we're going to hopefully have some good picks for this card. And look, hopefully there's some low-key bangers. I mean, that was my biggest takeaway from UFC Denver. There were some sick fights that went down. That Montel Jackson KO was sick. I'm never picking against Jean Silva again. And I picked him for the last one. When I had not picked him against Charles Jourdain, that's when I got schooled. And now I know that guy's going to be a future champion, and probably one of the greatest at this rate. We will see. Let's get on with the first fight of the card, which is Mohammed Usman versus Thomas Petersen. I think that this should be a fairly easy fight to predict. I have Mohammed Usman winning by either knockout or decision. I say that because he has sort of an odd strategy where he will implement his wrestling very effectively when he feels like it. It's just in that last fight versus Mick Parkin, maybe Mick Parkin is a much better grappler than we all know, and maybe Usman's camp knows this, and decided that a boxing approach was better. But like the hardest thing that you can face when making picks is you can rate an athlete, but it can be very tough to rate their decision making. And sometimes fighters have just like a bad day in the office, but sometimes you see these guys and you're like, you have all the physical attributes, but your decision making sometimes is not high level, and you will lose fights because of this. The Michael Chandler effect. But I don't think Thomas Petersen is the guy to do it. I know that Thomas Petersen he probably will have 30 pounds on Mohammed Usman in the cage. Maybe not quite, maybe more like 25. But let's be clear, Thomas Petersen is 6'1", and at heavyweight, he does not really have the frame that I think that you need to have to be able to implement your wrestling against somebody who is strong and high level. I mean, look at Mohammed Usman. Guy's a brick shithouse, right? And we haven't seen anyone have success against him in the clinch or with the grappling. I think that Usman would probably even be the better grappler here, but I think that he's most certainly better on the feet. Do I think that Mohammed Usman is the next Cyril Gane? Absolutely not. But he will throw enough. I don't see Thomas Petersen being able to chew up the calf like Nick Parkin did from the outside. I certainly don't see him being able to weather any huge barrages. Like, it was actually impressive how composed he was in the first round after Usman landed a big flurry of shots on him. I am referring to his past opponent, Mick Parson. I do not think that Thomas Petersen possesses those skills. I will go with Mohammed Usman, most likely by decision, but he could get a knockout. Okay, moving on to the next fight, we have Luana Carolina versus Lucie Pudilová. This is a very tricky fight to pick, I would say, because both of these fighters have shown that they're like 500 or a little bit better than 500 fighters in the UFC. I think that Luana Carolina, when she got knocked dead by Meatball Molly McCann via spinning elbow, it really was worrisome. I have to acknowledge that she has won 2 matches in a row versus Ivana Petrovic and Julia Stoliarenko. And like, if Pudilová is going to need to be able to implement a grappling game to be able to succeed, and I think that Luana Carolina, like, I do rate her actually as like a better than average fighter. I just think that there have been a couple of matchups, like that split that she lost against Joanne Wood, and like getting knocked into the shadow realm by Molly McCann, that were really bad looks. But like, she had 2 losses and now has 2 wins in a row. Sometimes momentum and confidence can be the difference. We oppositely see a Lucie Pudilová who was beating lower level competition. I mean, Yanin Wu isn't even in the UFC anymore, and then she's losing to Jocelyn Edwards and Aylin Perez. And I just, like, I'm not going to say this with all the confidence in the world, but I think that Luana Carolina will be able to do enough. She'll be more active with the volume, and I think that she'll be able to stifle Pudilova's grappling attempts. Even if Pudilová is able to accumulate a little bit of control time, she's never shown an ability to do a considerable amount of damage with it. And so I think for that reason, if you can't bank on her to accumulate, just like something like 10 minutes of ground control time throughout this bout, I do not see her winning. So give me Luana Carolina to win by decision. Okay, moving forward in the next fight on the prelims, we have Loik Radzhabov versus Trey Ogden. Sometimes I think that And a performance can really positively or negatively sway your opinion about a fighter when in reality the performance was more so because of the lack of the opponent's level or skill than like a sudden massive increase in talent. I didn't learn anything new about Trey Ogden after his victory against Kurt Holobaugh. I think that Trey Ogden, we know what he's good at. He's good at grappling. He's good at acquiring, he's good at like actually trying to pass guard and work through his progressions. Can be kind of tricky, like on the outside. But what I learned of Loik Radzhabov in his last performance was that, look, Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi is a high-level fighter who was fighting a good fight. It's not like he went out there and shit the bed. He was performing well, and dude, he just got knocked out. I think that Radzhabov is going to be, I think that when I look at new MMA judging, or at least what it's supposed to be, damage-based scoring, I'm thinking in my mind, if I think that I'm going to go on to the next criteria where I think that somebody's going to win on effective grappling, it has to be like a rag doll. It has to be like Bryce Mitchell on the come up. It has to be dominant grappling. I just feel like even if Trey Ogden is able to get some takedowns that, and Radzhabov is no slouch on the feet, but what I've seen of him so far in the UFC, which is only 3 fights, right? But that's a decision win against Esteban Ribovic, who I think is good. And then it's, getting knocked out by Mateusz Rebecki, who it's like, look, did that fight necessarily age well with him, getting knocked out by Ferreira? No, but you have to understand that I think that when you see these fighters making their ascent and fighting these really high-level guys, sometimes it just shows, and that motivates somebody to take things to a new level. So I'm not trying to get sidetracked here. I'm not going to write off Mateusz Rebecki. I will say that loss is okay, because I think that in a lot of ways, Rebecki was just sort of a more effective version of the same type of fighter as Radzhabov. But I don't see Radzhabov struggling with a guy like Trey Ogden, who has, I don't like to hold certain losses against people too badly, but it was not that long ago that he lost to Jordan Levitt, who, I just do not rate as, again, one of these guys who has to implement the grappling. But if the grappling doesn't work, what have we seen happen to Jordan Levitt? We have seen him struggle significantly against opponents who have the grappling acumen to at least be able to thwart off, takedowns. And I don't rate Ogden as somebody who has infinite cardio like Merab somehow. So I will go with Loik Radzhabov to win by decision. Moving on, we have Miranda Maverick versus Dione Barbosa. I'm not going to overthink this one. I overthought the Jazz Divisius and Fatima Klein fight. I don't know why I did that. In the back of my mind, I knew that Jazz Divisius was the fighter who was probably going to win. She's demonstrated an ability to grapple and strike at a high level. Maverick has demonstrated ability to do that with the best of them. And, could Dione Barbosa be, a really talented fighter who potentially could beat Miranda Maverick? I guess, but I just don't see it happening, I think that we're looking at, she's fighting Karakate in her debut. And now you're fighting Miranda Maverick, who, I understand that we've seen some of the losses, right? Again, I was just talking about her. We've seen her lose to Jasmine Jasdavicius. We've seen her lose to Erin Blanchfield and to Macy Barber. Those are some of the best fighters in the world. And other than that, it was a long time ago when she was taking some other losses. When she is taking some of these losses, like 3 years ago, she was 24. She's 27 now. She's fighting out of a great camp. So, yeah, like I think that she's going to win a decision against Dione Barbosa. I think that when you are somebody who is a very good BJJ practitioner, and you're just going up against somebody who is like savvy to all of this and also good on the feet. Yeah, I mean, like, what did she do in her last performance? She beat Andrea Lee. Yeah, I think that Miranda Maverick has this. So I will be going with Fear Thee, and I will not overthink this like I did with the fight last week. I don't know why I did that. That was stupid. Moving on, we have Brian Kelleher versus Cody Gibson. Man, like, this is just not high level. I'm not trying to shit on these guys, but, like, Brian Kelleher has been finished via knockout. Actually, wait, no. Okay, so in the last 3, he was submitted, knocked out, but all 3 first round. So 3 first round finishes. And it's like, yeah, has he had some time off since getting, highlight reel KO'd versus Cody Garbrandt? Sure, but I haven't seen anything impressive from him since 2022. And, like, is him beating Kevin Kroom that impressive? No, it was actually not. No, I've not seen him do anything impressive almost ever, actually. That sounds harsh, but Cody Gibson is not great. But, like, we know that Brad Katona, we know what his level is. We know what he's capable of. I think that I rate fighters, and, like, there's the champion, prospects, just these guys who are, like, maybe in the middle of the pack gatekeepers, right? And then you have the up-and-comers. But then you have the guys who, like, maybe were up there at one point and have just gone down into this category called MMA sacrifices. They're just there to build the future upon them, and they will get paid in the process. And you just hope that it doesn't end up like multiple, like another 4th round finish doesn't happen. But spoiler alert, I don't think Cody Gibson is that guy, right? Like, I think that if he's fighting people on the regional scene who are just terrible, then yeah, he's going to get a finish. I think that when he is, fighting guys who are high level, he's, like, usually going to decision. And lately it's been losing, right? But I think that Miles Johns is tricky, and Brad Katona, those are 2 tough fights to have consecutively. I think that he probably understands, like, I need this win. Because I just came off of a finals fight in the Ultimate Fighter. I can't then lose 3 consecutive UFC fights. I will be cut again. He knows this is his last shot, and he should beat Brian Kelleher. Does he finish him? Maybe. I think that he fights a conservative fight. Maybe he implements grappling and ends up winning that way. So give me Cody Gibson. Okay, so moving on to the next fight, we have Hyder Amil versus Jeong Lee. So it's been a little while since we've seen Jeong Lee, at least so it feels. Actually, no, what am I talking about? He got Blake Builder back in February. Okay, guys, I just rewatched that fight before recording this, and let me just say, holy shit, is this guy good. I don't think that Blake Builder is, like, mid, I mean, I know that he's now had 2 consecutive losses in the UFC, right? But, like, I don't think that he's mid. I think that he's a good fighter. I think in a lot of ways, he is, like, or he was what Hyder Amil is now, which is a guy who is 8-0, coming off of winning his UFC debut. And Hyder Amil won his UFC debut against Fernie Garcia. This fight took place at the division that Hyder normally fights at, which is featherweight. But if you look at it, Fernie Garcia, like, he's a bantamweight. I'm going to make sure that this is the case. But yeah, like, in his last 5 fights before that, he was a bantamweight. And so, like, he took that fight to, I don't know, maybe the UFC is going to give him a contract now at bantamweight. You see guys, I want to say that was like a short notice save. But anyway, so, like, I get it. You see Hyder Amil coming in and looking great and winning a very dominant first bout in the UFC, where, he did finish the fight, but it was in the second round. He didn't just sleep him. He kind of had to, it was a standing TKO. He had to kind of break Fernie Garcia down. I think the size played a factor. I think Jeong is honestly nasty. When I rewatched his fight against Blake Bilder, I found myself thinking, holy shit, this guy is, like, the body hooks. You would think that he was a pro boxer. His grappling defense was fantastic. He just looks yoked, too. He looks powerful. I think that he's going to be a problem, like a big problem, really. And I think that I cannot overlook that performance against Blake Bilder and the fact that this guy is 28. I think that I am going to go with I'm going to go with Jeong Lee to win this fight. Maybe even by stoppage, but as we saw with Blake Bilder, sometimes these guys are really tough, and it says less about the fighter not being able to get them out of there and more about their opponent just dogging it out and wanting to make it to a decision for a moral victory, which I very much could see happening. But anyway, we're just going with the overall pick here, not the method. So Jeong Lee will be victorious, I think. I think that he's top, not now, but I could see him being a guy who makes his way into the top 15. The new Korean zombie. Okay, so moving on, we have Bill Algeo versus Choi. This is tough, but I'm going to go with Bill Algeo. And the reason why I'm going to go with Bill Algeo is because I do not think that... I think that fight against Kyle Nelson was a little bit of a fluke, honestly. I'm not saying that it was... it was a little bit of an early stoppage, but I'm not saying that it was the worst that I've ever seen. But, I think that if he was given a little bit more time by the ref to collect himself, we could have seen him march through rounds 2 and 3 and win a decision. And, Choi, I just do not... I don't see you coming back from... Dude, his last win, it was 2016, man. You take years off, and then you have a draw with Kyle Nelson, and I don't see it. I don't see it. I think that this is a way for Bill Algeo to sort of correct what happened in that fight, showing that, because then after the fact, people will say, well, him and Kyle Nelson had a draw. And although he did lose to Kyle Nelson, he beat Choi. So that has literally nothing to do with the pick. But anyway, I think that Bill Algeo, especially after that last performance, is going to be like, I am a mortal man. Let me be smart and not fight like an idiot and get chinned in the first round. And I think that he's the better fighter. Could he cockily get chinned in the first round again? I suppose. Unlikely, though. Give me Bill Algeo to win by decision, because he's not really a knockout artist. So, okay, moving on to the next fight of the card. We have Cody Durden versus Bruno Silva. And this is definitely a tricky one to pick because, like, we all know what Cody Durden is about, right? He is a high-pressure grappler who's going to be implementing his takedowns, and, like, that's a bad strategy to try to beat a guy like Tagir, right? And Mohammed Makayev. And Jimmy Flick, for that matter. But that's when Jimmy Flick was actually Jimmy Flick, not the ghost of Jimmy Flick. So I think that his wins have aged well, especially the Charles Johnson win. And I think that Bruno Silva is coming off of a 3-fight win streak. Like, again, this is a tricky one to pick. I think that he's a good fighter. And I think that he's an explosive fighter. But it's just, I don't even think that highly of Tyson Nam. And in that fight, I think that, yeah, again, this is one it's really tough for me to sell my point extremely confidently, because I'm not going to lie, I'm not insanely confident in this pick, because this is a tough matchup between these two guys. But I'm going to go with the consistency of Cody Durden. I think that Cody Durden is, like, on a mission right now to try to turn himself into, like, maybe not a champion, but at least, like, one of the guys who's more well-known, a staple in the division, somebody who could, potentially be, like, a guy who can, main event one of these shit fight nights in the Apex. So give me Cody Durden to win by decision. That was not my greatest take ever, I'm not going to lie. But we got to make a pick on every one here. In the next fight, it is old man Kurt Holobaugh versus Kaynan Kruszewski. And I don't know anything about Kruszewski other than the fact that he got chinned by Elvis Brenner. But, like, can we really just completely write him off because he got chinned by Elvis Brenner? I mean, it's only the second time he's ever been chinned in his career, and the other time occurred back in 2019. Other than that, I mean, bro only has 2 losses. He's accumulated quite a bit of wins and a lot of finishes, 13 finishes to 2 decisions. I think that what's influencing me more in this fight is that Kurt Holobaugh is 37 and he looked bad in his performance against Trey Ogden. That's one of those performances where you say, maybe it's time to hang it up, dude. You literally just got ragdolled in a decision for the entire fight. The entire fight consisted of control time, and he just manhandled him. So I cannot pick Trey Ogden after seeing that. I'm going to keep it that simple. I don't know much about this other guy. I will literally roll the dice on him because I can't say confidently that that his opponent, who has shown a very impressive display of finishes on the regional scene and in his Contender Series fight, is washed up like Jason Knight. I just really can't. I don't think Trey Ogden's that good. I think he's a good fighter, but when you're losing to Jordan Levitt and then you absolutely ragdoll, and then you get ragdolled by the guy who lost to Jordan Levitt, I can't pick you anymore. So again, this is what I'm saying about this. Like, he should have been cut after that last one. Why are you making me pick between him? Put this regional guy against someone else who's new, I guess. I don't know. That's what you would think would happen. Either way, it's when you have these instances, like, it's easier to make picks on the pay-per-views. Anyway, moving on, we have the GOAT, Steve Garcia versus Sungwoo Choi. I was blessed to see Steve Garcia get a knockout live at UFC Miami when he was facing Shailin Nurdenbeck. And look, man, did he get knocked out by Mahashata one time? Yeah. Okay. Since then, if we factor that out of the mix, he's 4-1 in his last 5 with 4 knockouts. This would make his 3rd consecutive knockout. And guess what? It's going to happen against Sungwoo Choi. I do not think Sungwoo Choi is that great of a fighter. It's somewhat confusing to me that I thought he was cut. It's just been a while since he's fought. He beat Jarno Aarons back in August of last year. I thought maybe they cut him even coming off of that win because it's like he had 3 consecutive losses, and one of them was to Michael Trezano. And you lose a split to Holobaugh. Yeah, I don't think, there will be moments in the fight, right? Like, there might be a moment or two in the fight where Sungwoo Choi puts together a nice little combo on our guy Steve, and you think to yourself, wait, is this guy a good fighter? And then he'll just get chinned. And Steve Garcia has sneaky power. I think that, he's somebody who amongst the hardcores is really starting to build a reputation as like, look, dude, this guy's on a run. And like the wins are aging nicely. Like Chase Hooper, that's a good win. Meziquel Costa, that's a good win. I think Steve Garcia is a big-ass featherweight, and I think that he's going to get his 4th consecutive KO victory. All my homies love Steve Garcia, and that's who I'm going with. So, moving on to the co-main event. Jesus, man. Brad Tavares versus Jun-Young Park. I don't know, dude. Brad Tavares... I would say that I think that, I don't know if you guys have heard this term get floated around, like aura, like all these, like a fighter has an aura about them. And I don't know if you've heard someone use the term aura merchant, like this person literally just like lives off of their aura. They haven't actually done that much impressive, but their entire reputation is just driven by their aura. Dude, I've heard people have some hot takes, but like Brad Tavares is the biggest aura merchant I've ever seen in my entire life. The most impressive thing that he does is the way that he loses to people, which is crazy to me. Like, oh, dude, did you see the way that, dude, he made that Adesanya fight look competitive? Yeah, in his next fight, he got knocked out by Edmund Shabazian. And then he beats 2 guys who I don't even know who they are. I literally couldn't tell you, and they're not in the UFC anymore. Dude, did you see the way that he fought like a close, dude, losing close fights is not an impressive skill. Did you see the way he lost a close fight? It can be if it's like one fight, but like if your whole resume is just like built upon how well you lost in every key fight. They literally gave him Chris Weidman off of leg repair surgery, and and then he gets knocked. Yeah, I'm going Jun-Young Park to fucking ragdoll him and win by decision. Moving on. That's all I have to say about that one. I'm getting heated as we're getting closer to because I just it's like somehow what they were with these fight night cards. I kind of like some of the fights leading up, and it's like just do better in the co-main and the main. That's all I fucking ask for. Anyway, sorry I'm raging a little bit. Amanda Lemos versus Virna Jandiroba. I'm going to go with Amanda Lemos to win because this is... And I've fallen victim to this before. And if I come in here and do a recap and I'm talking about this fight and I'm talking about how, it's like so unfortunate that Amanda did more damage, but Virna won because of control time, even though we're in a damage-based scoring model, I might lose my shit, but I'm going to trust that at the Apex, the judges are going to play by their own rule set, and they're going to give credence to the damage. Dude, Amanda Lemos has, she's like the closest thing to a female Poetan, right? I know, I'm not even making a comp to their fighting styles or techniques. I'm just saying, she's got power. Are a lot of her stoppages early? Yes. But I mean, whatever. Like, if this is what they do, she's like the queen of early stoppages. She'll hit Virna with a nice combo. Virna will be gathering herself, and Mark Goddard will come in and say, it's over, and then that's all she wrote. So I'm going to go with Amanda Lemos to do more damage in this fight, and even if Virna accumulates some ground control time, I think that Lemos will do more damage, and that's my take in this fight. If Dern was able to beat Jandiroba in that sort of a style game, and then we saw Dern attempt to do that to Lemos, and Lemos just drop hammers on her, and even though Dern had a lot of control time, go with Lemos. I'm going to say that the same thing, this will look very similar to that fight, and Amanda Lemos will get it done. And maybe it'll be a decision, but they love giving her early stoppages, so I'm going to go by KO. If you like the content, like and subscribe. If you like my takes, comment below. If you don't, if you think they're shit, let me know. But thank you for tuning in. Peace.